public affairs myself. So when Francis asked me to join you, I was really happy to do so. I just wanted to outline a few thoughts and areas of support that some of which you'll be familiar with, some of which we can discuss in the questions afterwards. Now, I haven't seen the people that are on the call, but I'm just knowing the members of the PRCA. You are probably some small businesses, some larger businesses, but I know you'll have clients that, again, are both small and large. So you'll be representing the gamut of the of industry and the corporate world between you, and indeed the charity world. So it's good to speak through some of the issues. I understand the virtual summit that you had last week was very successful, and I just want to thank you for the support that you're giving to SMEs, communities at the moment, including the training startups and web-based companies and social media handling, and helping communities by publishing crucial local information. That's what public affairs does. That's what good communications does. And at this particular moment in time, well, you'd have seen it from the last few days, clearly, communications is so crucial in this given situation. So I know many of you are changing the way that you work at the moment. I've been used from working small businesses, working from home. I've had kitchen table businesses, I've had larger businesses that I've run over 20, 25 years, but for many, this is a particularly new stage at the moment. We're all getting used to Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meets and the like, which is accelerating a number of conversations. Flexible working, digital take-up, all of these sort of things are coming to the fore a lot quicker than we otherwise may have happened. But you know, I'm definitely getting a little bit of screen fatigue. It's always nice to have face-to-face meetings every now and again, but we are doing what we need to do to make sure that we can get through this, get to the next stage of this emergency, so that we can start motoring through the gears to get our economy back up and running again. Because government's first priority has always been to save lives, but making sure that we can restore livelihoods and protect businesses is so important, and that's very much where you will be coming in, as you have been already. So we continue the phased return, and we're helping businesses, and our help and support remains flexible as it has done throughout this, because getting our economy going again is so much of where we need to be, because the lasting effect of this emergency can otherwise, you know, will go on for years if we don't get this right. So over the last few weeks, we've been working with businesses, with unions, with industry, on our safer workplace guidance. First of all, making sure that those businesses that haven't been needing to be restricted and closed can work safely. But now we're moving on to the next stage. That we're working on those safer workplace guidance for other retail, and gradually getting into the hospitality and people working close to each other, like hairdressers and the like, so that as the businesses that have needed to close, as they open, they can be working in safe circumstances. And that is really important, that we do that for not just for the health reasons, but for confidence. And again, that's where messaging comes in and good communications comes in, because not only do employers need to make sure that they are comfortable, that they are doing what they need as a good employer to keep their employees safe, but clearly their employees need to have that confidence they're returning to a safe workplace. And if you're going to bring customers back, drive customers back to the high street, back to these sort of businesses, then again, it's all about confidence. That can they travel on transport? Can they get their children back into school safely? And as I say, into safer workplaces. But we've, in terms of the financial schemes, we've listened to feedback from businesses, from individuals, and we've updated existing schemes. We've launched new schemes. If you remember back to the original budget that the Chancellor made, when he was talking about, you know, an enormous budget, £330 billion, really flexible. But boy, did we not know the scale and flexibility that was going to be required as we started to lock down. And we've had to keep changing things since then. So one of the big changes that we've made, for example, the original grant schemes that we had when we were giving very small businesses and smaller businesses in retail, hospitality and leisure in particular, who were particularly affected by this. We've added an extra grant with a discretionary grant fund to local authorities that was announced on the 1st of May. And that meant that businesses that weren't eligible for those two grant schemes can now look to their local authority, where we've given up to an extra £617 million for them to allow a little bit of leeway and making sure that their local economies can be best looked after by the people that know their local economy best, the local authority working with local businesses. So that's businesses in shared offices, for example. It's regular market traders that don't have their own business rates assessment. It's B&Bs that pay councils tax instead of business rates, and charity properties that are in receipt of charitable business rates relief, which have otherwise been eligible for small business rate relief or rural rate relief. So all of these things, as I say, we've been moving around the edges in response to the voice of business and the voice of charities. We've updated the coronavirus job retention scheme. So on the 12th of May, the government announced that the JRS would be extended in full until the end of July. And from August through to October, the scheme is going to enter into a flexible furlough period. So that's basically as businesses start to open up, start to want their employees back, but they're not able to trade fully and at full speed, at full rate, then we need to make sure that the job retention scheme flexes with those businesses, because we've fought hard to make sure we put 7.5 million people are relying on that scheme to keep their jobs, rather than where they put on temporary furlough rather than permanent redundancy. What we don't want to do is lose that prize as we start to open up the economy that we've really managed to help secure at this moment in time. But as I say, this is precarious. We've got to make sure that we get this right. And as for business finance, well, we started off with two different loan schemes that now morphed into four. So we've got the business interruption loan scheme, CBILS, which is loaned over £7 billion. We banned personal guarantees eventually for smaller loans and extended to more businesses. We launched the bounce back loan scheme at the beginning of May, which sped up access to credit for smallest businesses, and that's loaned £14 billion. And we've also launched the Future Fund, worth £500 million to ensure that high growth companies across the UK can access the investment that they need during the crisis. And the Chancellor has indicated that he's willing to consider expanding if demand exceeds that. And that's for companies that are pre-revenue, pre-profit, that are early stages. So we continue to work with businesses and their representative organisations across the board. And there are two other initiatives that are coming up. So I'll be bringing the new corporate insolvency and governance bill through to Parliament next week. And that helps support business. It gives them some flexibility for company rescue and some temporary relief on corporate governance measures, how you hold your AGMs, about the filing that you have to do to Companies House, and making sure that we can ease a little bit of bureaucracy at this difficult time. The new UK Global Tariff, which was announced on the 21st of May as well, means that quicker and cheaper importing for UK companies on a range of overseas products. Now, I hope that you're going to be able to find any support that you need on the gov.uk website. There's a business support finder there that you can put in details about your business or your client's business and see what's available to them and how to access this. But we will continue to make sure that we are open to your ideas, and that's why it's really important that you continue to feed your concerns into me, into our department, to government directly, and via your trade association. And with that, I'll pause there and love to hear from you and your questions. Thank you.
Yes, I think there is one question from Andy. He's asking, could you give some more information on the furlough scheme and the more flexible arrangements that may be introduced to part-time furlough?
Yeah, so what we've been looking at over the next few months is, as I say, for the furlough scheme that's supported 6.5 million people to keep their jobs, whereas they were under threat clearly as companies run into trouble. We need to make sure that they can flex, because if you look at, say, for example, the hospitality industry, that's something that's been affected, particularly because any business that requires people to congregate rather than just come in, buy something and leave again, it's going to be affected for a lot longer. So we're working now about how you can socially distance it apart in the restaurant, these kind of challenges. And so clearly you're not going to be able to come back to full speed. So as I say, the scheme will stay until the end of June, in July rather, but then beyond that, what we're going to be looking to doing is to allow the detail will follow, and it'll be here within the next few days. By the end of the month is what we've said, but entering into a flexible period. So it basically means that you'll be able to bring your furloughed employees back into work part-time while still receiving support from the scheme. Employers will have to start contributing some of the costs of the workers' salaries, and that will substitute part of the contribution that the government's currently making. But we will make sure that the detail is to you and exactly how that's worked by the end of this month. Back to you, Neil.
I think there was a couple of questions that came in beforehand, so I'll just list them out. So the first question we got was, how long should businesses have to wait for banks to complete applications for bounce back loans?
How long should they wait?
Yes.
Well, it depends on the bank, actually. If it's your own bank, what we're finding is a lot of banks are clearing their bounce back loans within 24 hours. It's a very simple form, and you just with minimal proof. However, if you are going to a bank that's not your own, which you're entitled to do, and if your own bank says they're not going to give you a loan for whatever reason, you can shop around. The only additional exercise you have to do are the anti-money laundering stuff, the know your client laws. So that may take a little bit longer, a little bit more involved, but it should only be a matter of days. If you're not getting anything that, do go back to your bank, but we're not finding undue delay with too much undue delay. But if you are getting that experience, then please do let me know.
Great. And just moving on, one person asked to if you could explain and outline the future implication of the Chancellor's comments in March. It is now much harder to justify the inconsistent contributions between people of different employment statuses. We all want to benefit equally from state support. We must all pay equally in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there are three basic jobs that say, well, in law, in terms of tax, there are two tax statuses of different employees or workers. There is you're either employed or you're self-employed. But there's actually three terms in terms of workers' rights. You can be employed in a PAYE, self-employed, or you can be a worker. So typically people in the gig economy, the likes of Uber drivers before the court case that came out. When you're or people on 0-hour contracts, these kind of things, and that's where some of the anomalies come. So what you found is that there are people, unfortunately, that are falling between the cracks, and we've always been working hard and looking for ideas to see what more we can do to have flexibility. But it's been very difficult to work at schemes that we can deliver at scale. When you bear in mind changing such a scheme would normally take months, if not years, to do. We've had to do this in a matter of days in many cases. And so you have the job retention scheme that I was talking about is based on the spine of it is based on the PAYE system. The self-employed income scheme is based on tax return, whereas you get a number of people, as I say, that are falling between the cracks. There'll be a number of consultants clearly that will be that may be directors that are paying themselves through dividends, and I know they are a particular campaign that have made themselves known. And I've been working with them and the unions, and still looking to affect their views to the Chancellor. But in terms of where we go forward with those, I'm not sure that I've heard any more about any change to the tax regime. But I think that will be for a matter of the Chancellor in any future budget. But at this moment in time, what we're trying to do is work with as many people as we can and give as many people the support we can to make sure that our economy is able to work through the gears as we return to the new normal, whatever that new normal is.
We've actually just got another question from an attendee, from Chanel. Sorry if I've just mispronounced your name, but she's just asked, could you talk more about the future fund for startup businesses that were set up before the crisis? Is there any further support from the government for these types of businesses?
Well, the Future Fund is a convertible loan, so it basically requires matched funding from private investors, and so it's something that, as I say, we've just launched it. It basically allows pre-revenue, as you say, new businesses to be able to access some funding. If you can attract matched funding from private investors, then we will look at getting involved and helping secure the loans you need, and then convert it to down the line. But again, if it's something that you believe may work for you or for your business, do go onto the website, do have a look at the qualifications there, and see if it can be tailored for your business. But clearly, with all of the loan schemes, as I say, we'll continue to work with you. If you feel that it's not reaching your business, then let us know your concerns, and I'll make sure I feed that back to Treasury.
And another question, this was received before the webinar. Can I put my team on part-time furlough in July when the scheme is opened if they've not been on furlough previously, or does the employee have to be on furlough scheme ahead for the company to get part-time furlough help from the government?
So at the moment, the furlough scheme is such that you need to put your furlough, your employees into banks of 3 weeks. You have 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, or vice versa. When you get to the part-time furlough, again, the detail hasn't been released yet, so that's coming through the Treasury. We'll have that detail for you in a few days' time. I haven't been privy to that, so I've got no more to share that with you. But on the other hand, as I say, I'll make sure that I'm feeding back, if that's of concern to you in particular. Anything that's raised on this webinar will be reported back to both in my department, but clearly in Treasury as well, to make sure that as that guidance is finalised, we can take views into account. But as I say, at the moment it's 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, but we are looking to widen that flexibility.
There's just another question from an attendee. What support, such as tax relief, might be available for supporting employees who are working from home? As this is now becoming medium to long-term change, we need to think about providing support, e.g. broadband at home, equipment, contributions to bills, and so on. Will this be looked at?
Well, I think in terms of, it's something, I couldn't tell you particularly in terms of tax relief. I think what we need to be doing anyway is to make sure that we are driving wider flexibility to working from home. One of the big things that centerpieces of our business manifesto was the Employment Act that we were going to be, and still will be, bringing to Parliament as soon as we can. And at the centre of that was moving towards the default position, being flexible working whenever possible. And so that's something that this situation has really accelerated that conversation. As I say, I don't think there's going to be any emphasis. You must be imposing things from home, tomorrow or soon after that. But actually, what businesses have found, what I've found, is a lot of the feedback that I've had from big business and small business is that there are some savings that can be had. There are clearly some costs, as you're saying, but each business will be different, because what you save on transport costs and central office costs, you may be able to set that against some extra setup costs in terms of extra home working. So it will be different from business to business. So that's why we're going to need to work this through carefully as we look towards any sort of tax relief. But what we can do to help businesses move to the position that actually flexible working is a default rather than an unusual extra.
Great. And this is another pre-recorded question. So how does the government expect businesses to contribute towards the job retention scheme from August 2020 when they have earned no income since the lockdown? An example of this is where several contract cleaning companies in the hospitality industries have not been able to deploy workers as restaurants and hotels are closed. So the income businesses would have received to pay workers is now non-existent.
Well, I think it's really important to remember that the job retention scheme is exactly that. It's a retention scheme. It's not an income compensation scheme. Much as we'd love to be able to do that, we're not nationalising the economy. We're not taking over. What we try to do with the job retention scheme is to make sure that we can protect and minimise permanent redundancies by doing this. It's been relatively effective so far, notwithstanding the fact that there's still far too many people that are having to go to universal credit. So in terms of businesses having to contribute towards the scheme, it's effectively the furlough scheme. It means that you by not having people working within the business, they can't be doing things that are raising revenue for that business. As they start to do so, it's only right that for the taxpayer as a whole, that if it's going to be a sustainable support scheme, that we do start to have the process that people are sharing in it, because the work that those employees will be doing will at some point be bringing revenue to that company. I understand the challenge. I'm not saying that this is any stretch of imagination is easy, but short of the government nationalising the economy and nationalising companies, there's really no way around this. So it's trying to be fair to the taxpayer and the company in turn, so that the company's been asked to top up the scheme, that the government will still be there paying the lion's share for employees as we get through those early stages of the restrictions being lifted.
Thank you. And then there's just someone else asked about directors. How do directors who are paid through dividends get income during this lockdown when all their businesses are closed and have close to zero sales or income?
Yeah, I spoke about this earlier when the fact that, as I say, they are an obvious group of people who have fallen between the cracks at the moment, and there is a complication, because, as I say, with the job retention scheme being on PAYE and the self-employed scheme being on the tax return, there is no way. Although it's easy when you're looking from outside, it's the systems are not in place in HMRC to differentiate between the dividend being, which is in reality it's an investment income, as opposed to where it's a salary boost, and it doesn't even differentiate from where the dividend has come, if it's your own company or another company. So that's the complication that arises when you're having a situation like this, when you're trying to help as many people as possible at speed and at scale. So to build something up that takes in 750,000 people with added complications is incredibly resource intensive and is complicated. But nonetheless, as I say, we continue to listen. We continue to be as flexible as they can. Directors themselves, however, having said that, as I said, there's two things they can do. On the salaried part of their income, they can still place themselves under furlough if they're not working. You can do these statutory duties to keep the business going in terms of accounts and company house submissions, those kind of things. You can't be doing revenue raising business if business has stopped entirely. Then you can do that and get some help. There's universal income. There's also the bounce back loans, which will help through the cash flow issues of this moment in time. Nothing is perfect. None of these schemes are perfect. They can't be perfect, as I say, when you're trying to react so quickly. But that support is there at the moment.
And someone's asked about the support for freelancers and what's going to happen to that support in the next few months.
Well, again, freelancers, a lot of freelancers are based within that same that same group of people. If you're a self-employed freelancer, then again, I know the self-employed scheme has been raised, and that will be taken into view. I have The Chancellor certainly had that raised in the last few days, and so we'll see what happens with that in the weeks to come. But nonetheless, as I say, the important thing is, as we remain flexible as we can on the support, key thing is to get the economy up and running again, because that's the only way we're going to be able to solve this situation and stop a reliance on public money. Is getting the economy to be able to work through the gears. It's not easy, as I say, by no means is it easy, but that's what we've got to do.
Great, and this might not be particularly relevant to the conversation, but it's a question about large-scale events, and when do you think they will be able to sort of happen again? I guess this is particularly relevant to the PRCA, given that we're in the business of hosting events, which have all been cancelled for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and it is the big challenge, because as I say, that's why hospitality is within that field, and these are areas where it's working it through, because what's been raised with us from a number of people in the hospitality industry, for example, is the distance that you can have in social distancing. So we have 2 meters. Germany, I think, it is 1.5 meters. Other countries have 1 meter. And what they raised with us is the difference in terms of the events you can have, or the congregation, as I was saying earlier, with the pubs and restaurants, that you can have, the more people you can fit in if you're close together. However, the advice at the moment that I've been hearing from Public Health England remains that a change from 2 meters to 1 meter is considerably different in terms of the amount of time you can be exposed that close to somebody. So the scientists will be working through that. But there's no easy challenge. You'd have heard, no easy answer, rather. You'd have heard that a number of conferences in the that are planned for the autumn have been changed to online conferences. And I'm afraid the new normal is going to be with us for some time yet. But that can only be changed on the scientific advice. We've got to make sure that we don't get that spike, because this wave will be really grim for our economy if we don't get it right. So I don't have an answer for you, frankly, but we will make sure that the quicker we get back to that, I think everybody's going to want that, frankly. But in the meantime, the more we can do to have events that are socially distanced, that we can maybe have some showcases that can show how to host a small or medium-sized event at reasonable social distancing. I think that will help give the confidence that I was talking about earlier, albeit the scientific advice has to remain supreme.
No, thank you. That's really helpful, even though I know it's really difficult to predict that. That's it for the questions that we received prior to this webinar recording, and also we've answered all the questions in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, please use the chat function or the Q&A function. If not, we're pretty much done. So if anyone has any questions, please use them right now.
Oh, someone's connected. I think while they're connected, I'll just say that I know so much of this. This is difficult that there are no fixed dates. We're having to. This is real time. This is basically real time in government. If you think you and your private businesses, you can sit there and make a decision. You know what it's like, because actually many of you that are in the public affairs side of the PRCA, as opposed to advertising events and what like that, will see government day in, day out, week in, week out. And you will know that consultations typically take months, as I say, if not years. And it's something that I found as I was getting involved in government. So actually to see the change that we've had over the last couple of months has been, trying to think of another period where government's moved so quickly. I can't think of one, frankly. So that's why it's really difficult to predict where we're going to be in two months' time. However, it's a little bit more in our control, whereas as we came into lockdown, clearly we were having to react. I think what we can do now is, by listening to your views, keeping conversations going on, we can start to respond. There's a big difference between responding and reacting. And so it's slightly more within our gift, but still it's got to be within the medical advice. And we're looking at other countries. We're looking at what's happening in other countries, good and bad. And it's really important that we pick up that sort of practice and listen.
Thanks. We've actually got a question from Hannah who said, is the government planning to hold a budget to outline further support measures and its economic response? And if so, when?
Good question. The budget will be announced in time. I can't give you an answer. I'm not the chancellor, but clearly we will be looking at recalibrating our finances, and as we get to a more degree of certainty where we're going with all of this, we'll be making our announcements in good time. What we have said though is that we're not going to be cutting back on our things like our infrastructure projects that we're talking about leveling up, because it's really important that we continue to level up around the country. If we're going to come back as an economy, we've got to make sure that it doesn't matter where you are in the country, that those opportunities occur everywhere. For me, as one of my roles, small business minister, we talked in the manifesto about the UK being the best place to start and grow a business. One thing that I was doing as we were coming into this is making sure that business advice is consistent across the country, and therefore now I believe that business investment should be equally consistent around the country. So it shouldn't matter where you are in the UK if you're thinking of growing a business. If you have a business, you need to have that consistent advice and consistent infrastructure investment. And so that's going to be really important that we balance that. So this does not necessarily lead to austerity 2.0 as it's been reported in parts of the press. There are ways that we can work through this, as difficult and challenging as the next few months and years are going to be.
We have another question from an anonymous attendee. So SME house builders have asked for greater flexibility for building for the extension of current planning permissions. Have you had any conversations about this?
In terms of residential or commercial, was that?
So it's about, so SME house builders have been asking for more flexibility.
Yeah. Well, that's, to be fair, that's MHCLG. I'm working closely with a number of regulatory easements. So in terms of planning, we will be looking at is things like high streets and these kind of things. House building, clearly, we're going to need to accelerate it to make sure that we can get back to satisfying the demand of people that are crying out for houses. It's the only way we're going to solve the housing crisis. So we will look at planning. Where we'll go with that, I can't tell you. As I say, that will part of the conversation again, I'm sure, with you representing your SME house builders and other builders and other property developers. You'll no doubt have a full place within that conversation. But one of the big things that we have been doing is, as well as financial support, is looking at what support we can give on regulatory easement, on business easement, on bureaucracy easement, and these kind of things. So I'll be interested to hear your views on that.
I don't think there are any more questions. So thanks for that, Paul. Maybe give it a couple of more minutes if anyone has any sort of burning questions. Please, again, use the chat function. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you for joining us. I think it's been really helpful for our members who are I think we're all struggling during this pandemic, and it's great to get some sort of clarity on the issues that we've been discussing. So thank you for that.
Not at all. It's always difficult, as I say, because things are moving. It's always difficult to put dates on this and detail on some of the things that are happening in the future, because, as I say, it's happening in real time. It's really important to hear from you, and please do keep in touch, all of you, through the PLCA. Let them know what you're thinking, what your views are about the clients that you represent, as well as your own businesses, and I'll be really interested to hear more.
Yeah. Oh, actually, we just got another question. Given current circumstances, is it still the intention to reform the UK audit market so that customers and suppliers are better protected? And can you give an idea of the timeline that the government is working to?
In terms of the audit market?
Yes.
So to be fair, that's not something that has come across my radar, but I'll find out for you. And I've not heard that we're pulling away from anything. So, but I'll take that away and come back to you.
Yeah, if the person who asked that question could drop me a line, and then as soon as I get sort of clarification from Paul, I can get back to you. Actually, we've just got another question. So as businesses are about to open, they will need cleaning before they start. So deep cleaning will be for a couple of hours, about 12 hours. If staff are on the JRS now, if any of them do this job, they will have to come off the JRS, but these hours are not enough for them to survive on. What do we do to support our clients in this situation?
Well, I think that if they're coming back now, there is the way the JRS is at the moment is that, as I say, it is if you're providing revenue for the company, which deeply will be, then obviously they'll have to come back and be unfurloughed. If assuming they're on PAYE, because I come back to the point, it's not an income compensation scheme. He's trying to keep jobs that would otherwise have been gone into permanent redundancy at any one given time. So I appreciate this is difficult. I appreciate cash flow is hugely difficult. That's why we're pointing towards people where there are cracks within the schemes, the hard lines, if you are, when you're trying to produce something at scale, pointing towards people towards those bounce back loans and other areas, which will help gradual tackle those cash flow issues. They're 100% backed. You don't have to pay them back any interest or repayment within 12 months, and they're capped at 2.5%. So we're trying to keep them such that you can get the help now, and they are affordable for businesses. What we don't want to do is saddle people up with too much debt and just postpone the problem. But it's, as I say, then there is nothing perfect. But that's the scheme that as it is at the moment.
I think that's it. I said that last time, and we had 2 more questions. So I think, I know you've got to rush off to another call, so I appreciate that you've given your time to this. But thank you for this. And if anyone on the webinar has any sort of outstanding questions that you just think of, just feel free to email me and I can pass it on to Paul and his team, and hopefully we should be able to clarify some of the questions that you have.
I'm really grateful for you changing the time. Thank you so much to reflect what I've got about to look at some urgent ways to work around this. And so what I've got to get onto, but I'm grateful for the change.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.